But even if we're lost, you know it won't be long till we get there. Ooh, spinning round, no control. Burning down, letting go. We've been wandering in the dark, but no matter where we are, just remember. Slipping through our hands, we're sinking in the sands of forever. Light, surrender to the dark, but we can make a spark here together. Ooh, hanging on by a thread. Ooh, we will climb back again. Time is slipping through our hands. It's hard to understand, but remember.
December was you and me, and I told my heart it was just a summer thing.
And welcome back to the Spicy Sports Show with Sam Strong, coming to you live from Portland, Oregon. It is 2:09 out on the West Coast, which means it is 5 o'clock on the East Coast, which means it's happy hour for you guys. Lucky you guys. Again, before I get into the baseball, and how America's baseball team is really starting to step up, and again, everyone's supporting them. I'm gonna go into a little bit of a challenging topic, I guess, for some people. For USC, again, as I mentioned earlier, they've got to go through a lot of changes the last couple of weeks. This is a team that initially, had a lot of hopes to get to the college football playoff. At a high ranking to start off the season. I think they were ranked as high as 6 in the country, and they go down to Stanford, they go down to Washington, and they're 3-2 on the season. And then Steve Sarkisian had a lot of issues at the beginning. He was intoxicated at a function for USC, and then intoxicated several times, and on a practice on Sunday morning. He's asked to take a leave of absence, which he does, and then roughly 24 to 48 hours later, he's fired. alcoholism, of course, is a serious issue. I'm sure we all know somebody, or know somebody that has gone through that. And again, it is a difficult issue. Um, at the end of the day, USC didn't have a choice. Um, they really didn't. And look, at the end of the day, for me, I'm going to support USC for what they did. Again, granted, it is borderline inhumane for some that really look that share that sentiment. Hey, he was on administrative leave. He was going to rehab. Here's my take on it, and then I'm going to read an article by SB Nation that's pretty good. I'm not going to read all of it, but there's certain excerpts that, and again, highlight enough that the USC had no choice at the end of the day. For me, being a college coach in any sport, or just being a coach in any sport, you understand that when you sign up for this job, again, your goal is to win games, and of course that's most important, especially at a program like USC that's very high, that has high expectations year in and year out. What you're also doing as well is you are molding young minds into becoming young men and women in society that need to do the right thing, that need to know what's right and what's wrong, and understand there are consequences for your actions. Steve Sarkisian couldn't be at this after that latest incident where he was intoxicated at a practice on Sunday morning. There is no way in my mind I could see Steve Sarkisian being a leader of men, leader of a team that again is looking for him for guidance. He just is not in that position at this point in time because he has a lot of demons that he has to fight, and he needs to do that away from football. He needs to take care of that on his own. That's just my point of view. Again, when you are leading a group of people, I'm not saying that you have to be the most perfect person in the world. That's not what I'm saying, because let's be honest, we're all not perfect. We all have our flaws here and there. What I'm saying is that you have to be at a point in your life where at least you have the majority of your insert word here, I'm not going to say it, your bleep together. You have enough, you have the potential to lead young men and women to greater things. And clearly, keeping Steve Sarkisian at USC, that would not have been the case, and USC would have imploded as a program. And look, for USC, they've already gone through a lot the last couple of years with the Reggie Bush scandal and having to forfeit scholarships, and they're finally just getting out of those sanctions. They're just getting out of those sanctions, and the last thing that they need is someone who cannot lead young men and teach them the proper things of how to go on through life. Again, I'm not saying Steve Sarkisian's a bad person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's a lot to Steve Sarkisian that he has to take care of right now, and he is clearly not in the position to be a leader. That's why they had to hire an interim head coach to do so. I always like looking at different perspectives for this issue, so that's why I'm going to read an article from SB Nation. And again, for me, at the end of the day, they just didn't have a choice. They just didn't have a choice. So here it is. I'm going to end, and here's where I begin. With Steve Sarkisian and USC, there were no potentially good endings. To illustrate this, let's start with the last decision about Steve Sarkisian's career at USC that hasn't been made yet. How he chooses to proceed now that USC has fired him for cause, with the quote-unquote cause being several alleged incidents of Steve Sarkisian showing up drunk at times he shouldn't have been drunk. The cause is what seems to be a major drinking problem for which he entered treatment. Going forward, Sarkisian has two options. He could do nothing. He can accept what has happened, more or less admitting that USC was right to fire him for his alcoholism. He'd be forfeiting millions upon millions of dollars and owning up to the fact that his drinking problem cost him his dream job. This is not a good option. The other option is to fight USC's decision in court, perhaps arguing that firing someone in rehabilitation violates the Americans with Disabilities Act. If this happened, Sarkisian would have to publicly discuss the details of his alcoholism. USC's lawyers would surely force him to admit the embarrassing nature of the things he's been accused of. He'd have to bear all his flaws with no guarantee he'd win anything. It would be ugly for all. This is not a good option. There is no pleasant solution with alcoholism. There are no pleasant solutions. There is only one potential good situation. That was for USC to never hire him in the first place. From a football perspective, Sarkisian's hiring was always confusing. Sarkisian did fine at Washington, but fine, quote unquote, isn't what USC goes for. There were plenty of more accomplished coaches who would have seized at one of the most prominent jobs in college football, but USC and AD Pat Hayden went with Sarkisian in large part because the former coordinator was part of the Trojan family. It goes on to say that really a lot of people weren't okay with the hiring to begin with because it didn't make sense from a football perspective. And again, we've heard about these issues because another article that you read according to the Los Angeles Times, said that these issues don't just start at USC. They stem back to his time in Washington when he was the head coach up there in Seattle, up at the University of Washington. Clearly, again, this alcoholism isn't an issue that he's just had this season. Clearly, it's an issue that has stemmed back months and going at years. And again, more reports have come out that he's going through a divorce right now. On top of these issues. So again, that may be the trigger. That being said, for me, if I'm the USC president, I would get rid of AD Pat Hayden as well. Just because Pat Hayden really hasn't done a good job, in my mind, of finding a candidate that can properly lead a team and young men. When you're a top flight program like USC, you usually go through every step to make sure that you're hiring a coach that can be the person, the man to take your program to the next level, to bring USC back to where they were in the 2000s as, again, one of the premier college programs in college football. And clearly now they've taken a step back. Again, Sarkisian's problems, and then Pat Hayden for hiring him in the first place just because he was an offensive coordinator during the championship runs at USC. What's next for USC? I don't know. There have been rumors that Chip Kelly's going to come back. I doubt it. I think he has a good job in Philadelphia, even if they're struggling right now. I just don't know right now who would be the next coach at USC. I just think that it is a premier job. I think that only a premier type coach can take this job, knowing what's going on right now. Again, for USC, this is a lost season, unfortunately, and they're gonna have to continue to move forward. Right now they're 3-2. Can they get to an 8-9 win season? Possibly. Can they get to a bowl bid? Definitely. They're not gonna fall off that badly. But I do think that they're not going to get to a New Year's Six game. They're not going to get to a playoff game, which is a disappointing team that has a lot of talent. But when you don't have a coach that can properly lead at the moment because of his issues, clearly it is a waste. There's a lot of talent there for them. But again, most importantly, you have to feel in a way for Sarkisian, as much as people say, look, he brought it on himself. Granted, yes, I do agree with that. But at the end of the day, this is a man who's finally starting to admit, after losing essentially what's called what he mentioned as a dream job, being the coach at USC, to now being in rehab and fighting through what is a disease in this country. And hopefully he does get better. Hopefully he does bounce back. But I hope he comes at a point where he can admit all his problems. He can admit that he was in the wrong, and move forward. I think that that's the first step, because I do know people that have gone through that, and I think the first step of anything is just admitting that there is a problem and starting to move forward with that.